Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host Michael Howard, the head of marketing at InfoTools. Today I'm joined by JP Soltesz, strategist, innovator, data interpreter, futurist. JP brings decades of experience from a variety of industries, from the media to financial services, technology to commercial real estate, and economic consulting to insurance. JP has experience in leading strategic planning at both startups and at global conglomerates like GE, where he helped define how the industrial Internet of Things, or IIoT, 3D printing, and open and crowdsourcing would shape the future of work. Very fascinating topics. Thanks for joining us on the show today, JP.
Thanks, Michael. It's really great to be here with you today.
You're welcome. So, what's the most significant thing you're going to share with us today?
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about how all of us workers out there, can build on our human skills in a technology-first, AI-driven world.
Yes, it is something very relevant to today, so I'm looking forward to the discussion. Something we've just heard about from the H Factor, a conference that's currently taking place in Toronto right now, which has been put on by CRIC in Cape Canada, is that AI is the third most pressing issue for corporates. Now, that may I guess, be a surprise to some people because all that we seem to hear about these days are AI, AI, AI. But the first two things that were mentioned was growing revenue and reducing costs. So I kind of felt that's a good place to start. What are some of the commercial drivers behind implementing AI?
Yeah, so what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is the ability for employees to use AI to adopt the more mundane, repetitive, tactical parts of everyone's job, of everyone's work. Those parts that can be done more efficiently with AI than with HI, what I call human intelligence. And this creates opportunities for employees to think more holistically about the organizations that they work for and ways to improve processes, how they can think about new product development, better customer service. And all of these things over time are going to help grow revenue. And we don't want to talk too much about AI replacing humans, but a lot of that repetitive work, those repetitive tasks that can be replaced by AI are much more time consuming for humans to undertake than for AI to accomplish. So over time, as organizations can upskill workers away from tactical skills or tasks to roles where they can use a more strategic mindset, and the more strategic mindset holds more value, employment costs should come down. We saw this when I was at GE, and automation, robotics were replacing jobs in our factories. There were opportunities for factory workers to upskill into roles where they control the automation, control the robotics, but the overall employee footprint over time was smaller. And that's not completely a bad thing in an economy like we have today in the United States, at least, economy, a labor market that is extremely tight and demand for workers outstrips supply.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the mundane, the repetitive tactical work is definitely a great, I guess, UK use case for AI. And I think people will also get surprised at just how much of the interesting side of parts of our work AI can assist us with as well. And I'm sure we'll get onto that later in the discussion. So I guess it is nice to start off with some of the carrots of AI rather than the stick that many people often associate with AI adoption. It has been several years since AI has been utilized in businesses, over a couple of years since Gen AI has been in the workforce as well. So for those who perhaps haven't taken it up yet, how can they get themselves prepared to work with AI?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about those the repetitious, boring tasks, but there's a big difference between a world where AI takes all the jobs and one where we are working together with AI to be better workers, to be more productive, to be happier, to be more efficient, right? And we do that by allowing AI and automation to adopt some of those repetitive tasks. I was talking about the factories at GE. A lot of those jobs were working with heavy machinery, and because of that, there was some danger to them, right? That's why, in fact, on factory floors, you see signs that say, you know, 30 days since the last accident. There is some danger to those roles, and AI can come in, automation, robotics can come in and take those roles over. So by expelling the repetitious, the boring, handing those tasks off to AI, we'll be more interested in our jobs, we'll be more engaged in our work, and that enhanced engagement, it'll allow us to add more valuable to the companies that we work for. So first of all, what employees can do is be open to the possibility. Don't be fearful about AI. That's step one. Spend some time defining the tasks that your teams have, whether you're an individual contributor or a leader in an organization. Find the tasks that you undertake or that your team undertakes on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Define which of those tasks can benefit from an assist from AI. And then look around your organization, see if there are technologies already in place, processes already in place that use automation, that use AI, and adopt those for your team. It likely won't be a quick process. It's going to take time, but over time, you'll be able to move the repetitious and the boring tasks to AI, and you'll have more time to think more strategically. One other thing I want to mention here is it's really important for leaders to be forthright and open about what their intentions are, right? Let employees know about plans to automate some of their tasks and be clear that the reason for doing so is not just to reduce headcount, and maybe not to reduce headcount at all, but to build teams and organizations where team members are consistently upskilling and consistently thinking more strategically.
I guess building upon that, you can also get your employees to think about how they might be able to better use AI as well, because they're the ones that are in the weeds. They're the ones that could think, hey, what if we tried this or this? And then that's obviously bringing greater benefit or value to their role as well.
And as leaders, be open to hearing those suggestions from the floor, right?
That's right. So what are some of the characteristics you believe that will keep humans working despite the presence of AI?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of characteristics that humans possess that set them apart from machines. But the four key ones that I think about all the time are creativity, curiosity, competitiveness, and to keep the game going on using C words, the compassion or empathy. Now we've seen AI attempt to replicate these traits. Generative AI is creative, right? It can create new content like music or art or your resume or your kids' homework assignments. And we've seen machines beat humans in competitive activities like chess or Jeopardy, right? New tech can also sense the tone of a customer's voice on the phone and identify how that customer is feeling, and they can formulate a more empathetic response. But AI's ability to replicate these traits is limited by the amount of data we give AI access to, right? So when you're talking about the vast library of information that's available, say ChatGPT, there's a lot out there, but it's not limitless. The human ability to be curious, creative, competitive, or compassionate has no limits.
So yeah, as you mentioned, there are certain aspects of creativity that AI does, it can replicate pretty easily, writing a book, a song, etc. And it can also create some stunning artwork as well. We've seen the likes of Midjourney, but quite impressive. So how can humans stay more creative than AI, or keep hold of this, which is such a precious thing in our lives?
Right. And it's completely true. AI can be creative, AI can be artistic. But there are limitations to AI's creativity, constrained, as I said, by the inputs that we put into AI, but humans don't have those limitations. Also, as consumers of creativity, whether it's the art we enjoy, whether we enjoy reading, whether we enjoy music or watching sports, humans want to experience the output of other humans, not the output of AI. And I'll give you two examples of that. The first is a really recent example about music. This past weekend, I was actually in Las Vegas, met up with a couple of friends, and we went there to check out the Sphere. And if you're not familiar with the Sphere, it's a giant sphere. It's a giant orb that seats about 20,000 people, about a block off the Las Vegas Strip. And everyone in the Sphere is seated in front of what is basically a giant IMAX screen of the highest definition, highest quality video imaginable. And we went there to see a band play, Dead and Company. And while the band is playing on a relatively small stage in front of the screen, there are visual effects timed to the music appearing on the screen, and the screen extends right from floor to ceiling and even all the way behind all of us seated in the seats. Dead and Company is an offshoot of the Grateful Dead, right? A band that started making music in the 1960s. So a couple of these guys that are still original members of the band, they're getting pretty old. And I'm not that young myself, but these guys are getting old. The singer, Bob Weir, is in his late 70s, and the drummer, Mickey Hart, is in his early 80s. So right now, right, we live in a world where if we wanted to, we could listen to perfectly crafted AI created music with no vocal imperfections. We can design music we want to hear. We can create music by our genre preferences. Do we enjoy country? Do we enjoy hip hop? Do we enjoy soul or rock? Do we want heavy bass or percussion sounds? Do we want, how do we want the vocals to sound? AI can create for us the perfect song based on our taste. But Dead and Company with a 70-something-year-old singer who is definitely not hitting the notes he could hit 50 years ago, and he'd probably admit that to you, and a drummer who can't beat the drums like he did 50 years ago, they're still selling out this 20,000 seat Sphere 3 days a week for basically 2 months straight. And why? Because as humans, we want to consume human-driven creativity, right? It brings with us the nostalgia that we remember. We appreciate the talent, the creativity that the humans display, even if it may fall short of AI. And just really quickly, the second example is baseball, right? In the 1990s, baseball was kind of infected by a group of players, a large group of players that were taking performance-enhancing drugs. These players were not AI, but close to it, right? Let's call them AMI. We can make up a word here, AMI, artificial muscle intelligence. And this was a turning point, not just for baseball, but for other sports and for all of us. Fans, right? Baseball fans, cycling fans, fans who follow Olympic sports, we all rejected the artificially enhanced, the artificial muscles, the superhuman player, because we wanted to consume creativity and competition created by other humans.
It's a great point, and something just seems wrong, doesn't it, when you see those people that were pushing the limits. Those that are purists, I guess, they'll always remember the Barry Bonds over the others. So
Yeah.
Curiosity is a big part of a researcher's core skill set. So it was one of your alliterations as well in there. So we talk about this a bit. How does natural human ability to be curious differ from how a machine can be trained to be curious?
Sure. Yeah. And there's two guys I want to mention here. The first, Albert Einstein. We've all heard of Albert Einstein, right? And we could probably say that his mind, his knowledge base was probably as close to functioning as AI as any human being ever. But he had a quote, and his quote is, he said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." Right? That kind of gives me the chills when we think about what he was saying there. The other person I want to mention is a Hollywood producer, Brian Grazer. Maybe not a name that everyone knows about, but he did a lot. He does a lot of movies with Ron Howard. He wrote a book called A Curious Mind, which was a take on a movie he had with Russell Crowe. And Grazer credits his success in the movie industry from when he was just starting out as an intern to what he calls curiosity conversations. So he's constantly meeting new people, having conversations with them, getting to know them, And he typically doesn't go into these meetings with an agenda. He's not looking to extract ideas for movies out of these conversations, right? He just wants to get to know people and learn things about different people. So he talks about two important traits that kind of need to go along with curiosity. The first is the need to listen, right? To truly be engaged in the curiosity conversation, absorbing what you're hearing. And the second trait is the ability to take action on what you've learned. So be curious, be attentive, absorb the conversations that the curiosity enables you to be a part of, and be prepared to take action, right? And these are in AI, right? We can teach AI to be curious, but AI can't go out and begin and engage these kind of conversations with different people and take action on them. You know, as an example, I'll go back to early in my career to talk about how curiosity is so important. I was a pretty young market research guy, and I was asked to create a database for a sales team that I was working with. Like I said, it was a while ago, and most of the salespeople on the team, they had file folders in their desk drawers, and they had Rolodexes of names and numbers of contacts. There may be some people listening to this that may need to go look up what a Rolodex is, right? But I was charged with taking all of that information that was in the file folders and in the Rolodexes and create a database. And there were some of the team members, some of the salespeople were really curious about what they could gain, what competitive advantages they could realize by getting all of that information in one place for everyone to see. But there was a small group of people that were against it. They were kind of possessive about their contacts and about their notes, and they questioned why management would want direct access to the information and to the data. And we talked a little bit about fear earlier. This fear of technology and fear of automation took hold in some of these salespeople. And I can tell you that those are the people that they didn't have long careers in that organization, and they probably didn't have long careers as salespeople in a world where they were reluctant to share their information, to share their contact information, to share the conversations they were having, and to utilize the data and technology that was coming out of that.
One thing that I think curiosity plays a big role, and we see it with our tool Harmony, is that it's essentially a thought starter. So you're analyzing your data, it spits out something in front of you, and then it draws your attention to something, and you're like, huh, I never thought about that before. And then that's a little thread for you to pull on and push and start exploring. And it is just speeding up that process, that speed to insight,
Right.
which can be so, I guess, which is what we're after in terms of discovering insights and sharing them with our organizations. So you also mentioned compassion or empathy.
Yep.
Chatbots, natural language processing seem to be making AI more empathetic. Would you agree?
Yeah, they definitely are. And in fact, some companies are using what's called sentiment analysis to identify kind of more appropriate, compassionate answers in real time for customer service reps to use. And, you know, I think this is a shining example of how HI, human intelligence, and AI, artificial intelligence, are working together, right? The AI is able to help determine what the customer is feeling on the phone. And they do that, the AI does that by judging what's the tone of their voice means, by judging the word choices they are using, by judging how fast the person is talking. And then the AI is feeding suggested responses to the human customer service agent, right? So it's this great complementary, these complementary forces of HI and AI coming together. But you might ask, why do we need the human in this interaction, right? Just have AI respond with a voice that sounds human. And we just recently saw some controversy about this a few weeks ago, maybe less than a few weeks ago. OpenAI's latest release of ChatGPT used a soothing voice that was eerily similar to an AI character that was voiced by the actress Scarlett Johansson, right? But there are a couple reasons why humans need to have a place in this interaction. The first is sometimes the AI misreads the situation, right? And it could be what the companies using this have found is that it could be something as simple as the customer on the line having an accent that the AI can't totally understand, right? And then the second reason that humans are important in this is it's really based off work that has been done by a professor named Jody Halpern. She's a professor of bioethics at UC Berkeley, and she talks about two kinds of empathy. The first is what AI uses, cognitive empathy, right? It's providing empathetic responses based on how the AI is trained. So the AI is trained to make judgments on the tone, on the word choices, on the speed of the conversation, and then AI makes decisions based on that. But there's another kind of empathy. It's called emotional empathy, and that's the capacity to internalize another person's emotions. And only humans can exhibit that. So again, a great example of AI working closely with human intelligence in this case. And I think when you think about that, emotional empathy, I always think about walking into a doctor's office, right? When you meet a doctor for the first time, you can tell if that doctor is truly exhibiting emotional empathy, if that doctor is internalizing your emotions, what you're feeling, the fear you're feeling, the anxiety you're feeling, or if it's a doctor who's just looking at the notes, looking at the results of your tests, and going off what the common responses or common treatment should be. You feel a lot better when you get that emotional empathy from a doctor.
Mm. The other important thing with empathy and compassion as well is humans are infallible in this point too. Sometimes we misread emotions that others are having. It could be that they're from a different culture. You think of a German compared to an Italian. You've got one that's very Germanic and very straight and direct, and you've got one that's full of passion. Not that they're both,
Right.
but you can quite easily see someone being quite down and negative, but that's just actually their natural inclination. So you may completely misread a situation where AI can come in and potentially help with this and just have a suggested state of mind, for instance, of how they're reading it, and then it's up for the human to decipher that.
Right. And I think also, I mean, think about if you're someone who's doing customer service and you're on the phone all day, you may have had a bad experience on your last call. You may be tired. It may be the end of your day. And the AI is going to help if you're not right at your best at that given moment. It'll give you hints and clues as to how you should react to the situation.
Absolutely. And just a nice little, hey, you possibly didn't handle that call as well as you could have. Take a 5 minute break,
Right.
gather yourself
Right.
and jump back into it.
Yep.
Um, Competitiveness is another distinctly human trait. But it seems to be one where humans are facing off against each other, not AI. Um, how do you feel AI can help us be more competitive?
Yeah, and so humans really do face off against each other. We're just we're intrinsically competitive, right? It's in our nature. And there are several studies that probe on this. An interesting one, and it's really more than one. It's kind of this theme that several studies have looked at. But basically, they give respondents to this study two choices. And the first choice is you can earn a salary of $50,000 in an economy where the average salary is 25,000. So you're making twice as much as the average person. Choice two is you can make $100,000, so more, but the average salary is $200,000. And what we found is that typically about half of respondents to these type of surveys say that they would rather earn the $50,000 instead of the $100,000 because it means they're above average, because it means they're higher than a bunch of people that they may know. Our competitive nature makes us do things that sometimes just don't make sense. And AI is not going to do something that doesn't make sense unless we program it to do that, right? So it's going to compute all the possible outcomes if I move this chess piece from this position to another position on the board. It's going to answer the final Jeopardy question more quickly and more accurately than the other contestants. And there's been studies done to identify why we are competitive as human beings. And there's really three reasons for competitiveness that have been identified. The first is that we compete to win. Second, we compete to surpass. And, we want to be better than others. And third, and this is the important one, we compete to develop ourselves. This is where in the future of work, we have to focus our competitive efforts. It's where healthy competitive nature exists, because I'll tell you what, if we compete to develop ourselves, to develop our teams, the winning and the surpassing, those other two reasons we compete, they're going to come along for the ride. They're going to be there, right? So it's important for us as teams, and AI can help us do this, to create goals and objectives for our company and our teams to beat the competition, right? To surpass the competition. But it's our individual professional development where we will find the path to achieving these goals.
Mm. And I guess those goals will also help you to validate your investment in AI as well, to show what's important, why you're doing it,
Certainly.
etc.
Yep.
So lastly, what would you say to those who suggest AI can replicate human characteristics that you say are so unique?
Yeah. Yeah, AI can certainly replicate these traits to an extent, and AI is going to get better over time, right? But humans will always be able to, either just as, or if not more so, be more creative or curious than AI. And as AI learns and gets better over time, humans will also learn both how to use AI as a competitive advantage, and where those places are, like we talked about, customer service, having that ability to talk to someone, being a doctor or another professional services where that human touch is important. We'll be able to identify where that is just really important, and that's how we'll be able to keep pace with AI in the future. A human creative touch, a bit of curiosity. That's when all is said and done, that's going to set us apart from machines and keep us working.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about in the 80s, no one really had any idea what computers were going to do for the world productivity. And some people would have thought, oh, humans are going to be out of a job in the 90s from the 80s. But we're kind of
Right.
obviously worked through all of that now. And that same
Yeah.
rhetoric is happening in from an AI perspective as well. But when we embrace it, we essentially become superhuman and then just normal.
Right. And one of the examples I always go back to, and you mentioned technology back in the 80s. One of the first ATM, the money machine, was created, I think it was either the late 60s or the early 70s in England, right? And that there were predictions for years and years that the ATM machine would replace the teller in banks, that there would be no more no more need to have people working in banks. But that didn't happen, right? We talked about repetitive tasks, the repetitive tasks of handing out a few $100s to a customer in a bank. Those kind of things went to automation and can now be done at the ATM. But there are still those touch points within your banking relationship where you need a human touch, where you need to talk to someone about an investment idea, or you need to talk to someone about why you're unable to pull money out of the money machine. So there's still opportunity for those roles in the bank, but they're more, right? They're probably funner roles. You're not just counting out money anymore because the ATM can do that. So even though it's a technology that's been around for over 50 years now, it hasn't kind of taken over all of the human jobs in that industry.
That's right. So any final words before we close, JP?
Yeah, sure. I just encourage everyone. I know there's a lot of fears out there about where our place is going to be in the future of work, that fears that AI is going to take over all of our jobs. But try to put those fears aside. Embrace the areas where AI can take those boring and repetitive tasks off of your plate, and use the time that you freed up to improve your strategy skills, to improve your skills where you stand out from AI, improve your creativity, think about how you could be more curious or competitive. Think about being more compassionate or empathetic in your day-to-day work. Embrace AI as a tactical partner and improve upon your ability to think more strategically. And most of all, this is kind of what I sign off all of my conversation videos with. Keep working, everyone.
Nice, wise words. Well, thank you so much, JP, for joining us on the show today. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I hope it's been helpful to others listening.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
You're welcome. And if you have liked what you've heard today, feel free to subscribe to the podcast, share it with others, and also leave a review. We'd be very grateful for that. Until next time, thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.